So we're working on a great project right now on Harvard Ave in Brantford. It's a garage conversion for a family who have children that are kind of becoming adults now. And the house is seemingly to get a lot smaller as the kids have bounced back and boomeranged back from university, and they're staying at the home for a lot longer than they had anticipated. So we're actually taking a garage and converting it to a studio-style accessory dwelling unit for the oldest son to be staying in until he is on his right feet to get his own house. And at which point they can use that converted garage as an investment for their family. Yeah, there were some really cool, interesting challenges with that project. We had to do sound separation, fire separation from the main unit, breaking out the electrical, the plumbing, the HVAC systems to two separate systems, the main house and the accessory dwelling unit. And since it's an attached garage, there's actually shared walls, and the ceiling is actually shared with bedrooms above. So we had to make sure we had proper separations for that, and while giving the people that own the house, the parents, still access to the systems in order to maintain and keep them up to date. Well, a huge way we avoid these surprises is through our pre-construction process. So our pre-construction process is a very thorough way to make sure we have a very well laid out blueprint on how to move a project through all the different red tapes and bureaucracies that come with these types of projects. And once we have all the approvals through the city and the different governing bodies, then making sure that the communication through the client is very clear about what they want, about future use for the property, return on investment, those types of things we talked about really early on in the process. There's actually some really interesting rules that are coming into play now that accessory dwelling units are becoming more popular, especially around air recirculation units. The HVAC system has to be well designed to make sure that we're keeping the air in the unit fresh and not exchanging air with the main primary dwelling. And then the electrical systems as well. We have to learn how to work with one electrical service into the house and breaking that into two functional electrical systems in the house that are big enough and powerful enough to support both uses of the property. Yeah, so the homeowners have been really great through the process. We've had a lot of fun working through some challenges with them. I know they spoke to a couple different contractors. They ultimately went with us because of the clarity of our process. So having a partner that they could walk hand in hand through the pre-construction stuff. And then we also have access to the online portal and things that they can keep accessing regular updates about their project. And they've really appreciated the clear communication that comes along with that. Some common areas that can be a problem when designing and building an accessory dwelling unit can be things like parking space. I mentioned hydro service, plumbing service, HVAC units, making sure that everything is kind of up to date and separated between the units. Soundproofing, fireproofing, those are really important considerations to be making, as well as how you're going to get your privacy when you're using the backyard or the outdoor spaces as well. How are we designing those spaces so that two families can now enjoy one space? This attached garage conversion ADU that we're doing in Brantford is actually a really interesting one because it's a side split house, which means the garage is actually underneath bedrooms that are upstairs. So the front facade of the house has to look seamless. We have to take a garage door and now make that work with the rest of the look of the house. And that was an interesting way it was an interesting challenge for us on the design side to make sure we had something that was functional, something that was affordable, and that looked good and congruent with the rest of the property. It's also really important to consider when you're going into the garage, they don't often have basements or any types of foundations below them. So we're talking about concrete slabs, and concrete slabs are known for being cold. So making sure that we do a good job of insulating the floor and protecting the end user from having a cold space. I really love this Swan Street project kitchen renovation, and some of the considerations that the homeowner came to me with at the beginning of the project was, well, first of all, they are kind of seniors. They've been waiting for a project like this for a very long time, so they've done their homework on what they were looking for. So they came to me with a pretty good idea and understanding of what exactly they wanted at the end of the day. We had to take that and make that a reality by going through the process with our cabinet maker. We had to go through flooring options, making sure that we made the space exactly what they were looking for. The biggest challenge with this project was taking out the main load-bearing wall between the front hallway and the kitchen itself, removing that and creating space for a really nice big dine-in island in this kitchen. And for a townhouse, you really don't feel like it's a townhouse because the kitchen really takes up a giant space on the main floor now, and it's so open concept to the rest of it. So taking those considerations really made it a really fun project to work on. Considering style and function are both very important through the process. it's a kitchen. It's a high use space in the building. So making sure that it's functional is kind of paramount. We have to make sure the space flows correctly. It's not too different from what they're used to, because you don't want them to have to relearn how to use a kitchen altogether. But there's a lot of changes, and kitchen design is always kind of evolving and changing. And it's a lot of fun to keep up with the trends, making sure that you're figuring out where the most high trafficked areas are and making them work really well together. The flow of how you work through your kitchen, going from meal prep to cleaning up the meal to the next day to get breakfast ready. Where are they going to dine? Where are you going to sit in the morning and read the newspaper and have a cup of coffee together? We got to consider all those functional aesthetics, and then talk about getting into how does it feel now? What types of materials are we using for the countertops? What are the cabinets looking like? And how does that flow with the rest of the house? Because when you're doing just the kitchen renovation, there is still the rest of the house that we can't just make the kitchen feel like a standalone project. So looking at the other spaces that are kind of attached to the kitchen and taking them all into consideration to make sure that the whole space feels well thought out. So a major kitchen overhaul is a big project. It's a big undertaking. And it's a primary space that's used every single day for most families. So having a kitchen completely torn out and renovated can be pretty disturbing to your everyday activities. You have to consider meeting with a contractor pretty early on in the process. This process can take anywhere from the day we start talking to the day that we are finished the project, can take anywhere from 3 to 6 months, sometimes longer on bigger projects. And you might be without a kitchen for a large portion of that. So considering where your family is going to be either staying through the duration of the project, or maybe putting in an auxiliary kitchen somewhere in the house, sometimes in the basement or a separate room that's not used as much, that can be used temporarily just to help your family through the difficult process of not having one of the most commonly used spaces in the room. But connecting with the contractor really early on in the process helps to bring the whole plan to life, because you are able to talk about all those things and how you're going to walk together through that difficult time. Material selections in a regular kitchen, it's a pretty daunting process. There can be upwards of 200 decisions that need to be made in any real kitchen renovation. So our way of supporting you through that type of process is to bring in the professionals in each area. So we want to talk early to the cabinet maker and make sure we visit a nice showroom that's well set up to make decisions about your cabinetry. We want to talk to the countertop company about how that's going to work together. We're going to go visit different flooring stores and talk about the different pros and cons to different types of flooring and what you're looking for. Lighting is a huge consideration, and even all the way down to the furniture. Like, what types of chairs are we going to pull up to that island when it's done? What's the dining table going to look like, and how does that work with the rest of the space? So we're going to have to talk a lot about some of those material choices, and we'll work with you through that whole process. Some common budgeting mistakes that can happen in a kitchen renovation. A lot of people underestimate how much work actually goes into this, especially if you're removing all the existing cabinetry and changing some sort of structural work in the kitchen. If you're moving a wall, if you're relocating where the sinks or where the stoves are going, there's definitely going to be some plumbing, electrical changes, maybe some HVAC considerations, and probably some structural considerations in the ceiling. So now we're talking about removing some drywall and changing some structure. All of these things can be done, but some people underestimate exactly what the cost of doing those kind of major changes can really be overall. Talking to your contractor early in the process, making sure that they understand exactly what you're looking for at the end, can really avoid some, disappointment when it comes to underestimating a budget. There have been some really great strides made in the way cabinetry is done. Flat pack cabinetry, some big box stores offer options to do flat packed or off the rack cabinetry, and it can work in some applications. It's often not cheaper than doing custom cabinetry, and you often aren't able to be as flexible with what exactly you're looking for, where drawers are located, exact sizes between maybe a door opening and a window opening. You lose a lot of flexibility with the customization, and the assembly time to actually assemble the flat pack cabinetry can eat up a lot of the savings that you think you're saving up front. So making sure you're discussing exactly what your needs are is really important with your contractor. Getting custom cabinetry is not quite as crazy and scary as you might think. The clients that we worked with on the Swan Street project were real gems. I loved working with them. They've been wanting to do this project for 30 or more years. The gentleman that owns the home is a retired firefighter and has worked really hard his entire life and is kind of a salt of the earth kind of guy. And his wife is a school teacher. She was a school teacher and now retired, and they've both since retired. And they're really enjoying being snowbirds. They fly back and forth to Florida each winter, and they were really looking for a contractor that they could trust on this project while they were away. So when they were living in Florida for the winter, we actually renovated the kitchen without them even being present. We did a lot of pre-planning to make sure all the boxes were checked off before they left. They had their finger on every single decision that we made before they even left. And the lines of communication while they were there were still open, but they really enjoyed that they could trust us as they left to go enjoy their vacation or their time away and come back. And when they arrived home, the project was 100% done. And you should see the text message I got from the lady that owns the home. She was elated with the project at the end of it. And when I visited her with a nice bottle of wine at the end of the project, I received a really nice big hug. It was really great to finally meet with them after that project was done. And she said she'd been waiting for this type of project for over 30 years and was glad that it went as well as it did. One of the ways that we made them feel more comfortable, since they were so far away during the duration of the project at Swan Street, was we actually set up live stream cameras for them to be able to just log on to our portal and view these cameras at any time. So they were running 24/7. They could see while the crews were working. They could see who was coming in and out of the house and at what times, and they could see the progress as the project took shape. You can't see a lot of detail with these live stream cameras, so we did also upload photos and videos every single day to our online portal that we use, and they were able to view in detail things like the backsplash, the grout lines, the different types of cabinetry, all the time through that project. So it was really great for them to stay connected to a project while they were really enjoying some time away. We were retained by a really great couple in Waterford for the in-street project. They had a completely unfinished basement on an estate-style home. It's a really large space, over 2,000 square feet of basement space that we had a lot of creative freedom with some kind of bullet points that we had to check off. He works from home, so having a home office in the basement was very important. They wanted a spare guest bedroom in the basement. He really loves to entertain. This guy is an off-the-charts social person, so he really wanted to entertain in this basement a lot. So we were asked to create a place that they could have a kitchen, a bar area, a big TV so we can host on, different sporting events and things like that, and also a games area where we can play cards or pool or darts or things like that in this basement. And we had a lot of really cool creative freedom on the project with just some guidelines on the way. Yes, basements can be dark spaces. They're underground, of course. That's kind of a defining characteristic of them. So really one of the fun things we get to do is figure out how to really liven this space up and make it feel like an above ground space as much as we possibly can. Some cool things that we did for the Yin Street project, we were able to take the standard window sizes and actually create false windows that make the window, when the blinds are closed, feel significantly taller. By using well-placed lights, you give the illusion of a full-size window in what is a basement. So yes, we still have egress windows in this basement. They're standard basement windows that are up kind of higher, but when those blinds are closed, they really do look like full-height windows, and it creates the illusion of a lot of natural light in a space that can't receive a lot of natural light easily. The homeowner is also a music lover, so he loves to listen to live music all the time. He's going to different concerts all the time. The basement's decorated with different band pictures and concert pictures and stuff like that. So one of his main priorities was to make sure that the whole basement was really, really well wired for sound. So we have big troughs of multimedia cables going to different areas of the basement, and we've zoned off the basement into 4 or 5 different sections, and we have this beautiful cabinet made by our cabinet maker friends that we're able to design and create a cabinet space that he could store his multimedia mixers and amplifiers and things like that, and we could wire those all through the house to give a really great concert experience from the basement. It's amazing. We also got the opportunity to use a lot of different insulation techniques and soundproofing techniques. So we use a lot of different mineral style insulations that create fire and sound separations between the main floor and the basement, as well as resilience channel, creating air spaces between the wood framing of the basement and the drywall. And we use sound dampening techniques in the actual basement to really keep the sound in the space. So, one person could be upstairs sleeping and the other person could be enjoying a concert on their big screen TV in this basement right now, and they could really live simultaneously in the house. It's great. So some projects, there are things that can go wrong. We haven't had one recently, but if a basement project or a project like this goes off the rails a little bit, the main thing that we're always going to lead back to is great communication. When planning a basement renovation, if you're concerned that the project might go off the rails a little bit, some of the major things that we can do is have great conversations up front. So our pre-construction process really gives us a chance to put all of the issues that you're concerned about on the table. We bring a lot of questions to the table as well, stuff you probably haven't thought about how we're going to work through this basement renovation. And what we're trying to do is really smooth out the process and have a lot of conversations up front, so nothing is happening on the fly. Decisions that happen on the fly often aren't well thought out, and we really want to avoid those at all costs. That is to say, you are always paired up with a dedicated project manager on our projects. So if things change, which they sometimes do, we just have those conversations up front. We make changes to the contract, make sure everybody understands what the changes are, and move forward together as a team. When planning your basement renovation, some avoidable mistakes that can really be caught early are things like egress, making sure that we have 2 or 3 points of escape from the basement, making sure that we consider water is a huge concern in a basement. So how are we going to deal with water ahead of time instead of having issues arise after the renovation's complete. Insulation, basements are cold spaces, they can be damp. We want to deal with that in the best way possible. Just space management, there's restrictions with concrete walls and the way that a basement can be laid out. We also need to make sure that there's considerations for the HVAC systems and the different systems that are in the basement. The electrical systems are often stored in the basement. Keeping those accessible, easily accessible, not cluttered, and tidy is really important. There are some engineering concerns or things we have to think about from that perspective. If we're removing load-bearing walls, we have an entire house above us that we really need to make sure that we're considering how we're supporting loads from above. There's also sometimes, depending on the use of the basement, fire separations, legal separations, different types of doors and things that we have to use to keep the spaces separate. And then points of egress from the building too. We need to make sure that the windows are kept big enough, that there's access to get out of the basement in different ways, and making sure that we're considering all of those things. When finishing a basement, some engineering things that we have to think about, like egress, points of egress out, a means of getting in and out of the basement, load-bearing structures, if that's load-bearing walls, or load-bearing beams that we need to make sure that we're considering as we're designing. The HVAC system needs to be well thought out and make sure that we're keeping that in mind as we're building bulkheads and things like that in the basement. Electrical systems need to make sure that they are kept tidy, accessible. We want to make sure we're considering things like water access, if there's waters in the basement, or insulation, different types of insulation used for different purposes in a basement as well. We can help you with all of these processes just by really good pre-construction planning. We have an excellent team in place, different specialists doing different types of jobs in the pre-construction process. You'll be working with one person, one point of contact all the time, but we're making sure that we're consulting with the experts in different areas to make sure that the whole project is all looked at from all different aspects, and we walk you through that process the whole way.
ADUs are a really interesting project. We really enjoy doing accessory dwelling units and secondary dwelling units. In fact, we did one just recently for a family who have 2 aging children, and they have a loft space above a commercial space inside their home. It was a space that really was feeling very isolated and pointless for the whole house and didn't have any real uses except for some storage. After approaching this family, after talking to them about their needs and doing a full assessment of what their life needs are going to be, it came to our attention that there was a space available to them that could service as a caregiver's suite or a secondary rental suite for themselves, or a future suite for one of their children to live in should they be able to function in that space themselves. The clients that we worked with, one of the biggest challenges there was accessibility, making sure that whoever lived there could utilize the space in a functional manner. Being that it was a narrow space, we found some really creative ways to put 2 bedrooms inside of 2 existing dormer spaces. So the entire space became 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a bathroom by utilizing the space in the dormers for bedrooms. And in order to do that, we utilized pocket door systems as opposed to swing door systems. And it's just one small example of how functional design really plays into a lot of the feasibility and design process that we take, and we take it very serious to ensure that the future use for these spaces can be maximized. Projects of any size have varying complexities to them, from a small backyard deck to a large family renovation of a secondary suite or an addition to a home. And each one of them comes with their own challenges and hurdles. One of the main things we do at Frontier, we really spend a lot of time in the pre-construction process to really understand what is actually possible in a home, in a space, in a project, before going through the entire build cycle, only to find out that there's going to be major challenges and additional costs down the road. Our first approach is to do what's called a feasibility study. That feasibility study really is to look at the spaces, look at the home, discuss with the planners, discuss with the building department, discuss with the engineers, discuss with the multiple trades that need to go into any one project, and really discover up front, before the first nail is hammered, what might be potential projects or might be potential problems or setbacks, so that we're not spending costly money down the road trying to fix mistakes that should have been caught way early in the process. We ran into some fairly unique situations when building the project at St. James. One, there's a commercial space below that is a professional space that really was concerned about noise transfer from upstairs downstairs. When you have people living above, there's a different use for a space when somebody's living in it versus when you're working in it professionally. So we really needed to focus on how to prevent noise transfer from the upper unit down to the lower unit. So that was a really interesting challenge, utilizing insulations and doing rigid foam boards and other unique material selections in order to make sure that the project was as quiet as possible for the people down below. Large projects like ADUs, and specifically the one we've done on St. James Street, are very exciting projects for us, for the homeowners, for our customers, clients, and for the people that end up using the spaces. One of the biggest challenges that people have is how do we end up financing a project like this? And there's a lot of different ways. One of the obvious ways is from personal financing and funds, if you have money in a bank account. Banks and institutions are really looking at additional dwelling units and doing mortgage funding for additional dwelling units more readily and more freely. There's been some real government initiatives to increase dwelling spaces for long-term rentals. So the government's really getting involved with grants, with bursaries, with policies to encourage banks and institutions to help fund projects of this size. This particular family was able to utilize personal financing for the first portion of the accessory dwelling unit, but they also have other projects that we're working on with them over time as well. It's a really exciting place. Without getting too specific, so this project is really near and dear to my heart. This is a family that really needs support. This is a family that has some challenges in their life. So this project in particular is really near and dear to my heart. And one of the things that I really personally, as a company, we really believe in is aging in place. It's allowing for people to stay in their home as long as possible. We really believe that a person's home is their castle, and there should be no reason that they're forced to move out. There's flexibility in planning. So for me, it's really important that we give people options and informed choice so they can make a decision on how to move forward in their lives. Accessory dwelling units and secondary dwelling units, which are inside the space. So an additional dwelling unit is a space that's outside of the house, like a detached garage or detached structure. A secondary unit being inside the house, like a basement or an attic or an addition to the home. Each offers some very unique opportunities for people to age in place. Additional dwelling units and secondary dwelling units offer some really interesting opportunities for people. One of the key benefits to putting an additional dwelling unit or secondary dwelling unit in your property is the ability to age in place. That's making a space in your home accessible for you long term, as opposed to trying to find a home that is accessible, modifying the home that's already yours, one that you have some great memories on, you have some great times at, to actually utilize that long term and make it more functional for you into the future. Frontier really specializes in design. We spend a lot of time before the first hammer is thrown in understanding what your needs are, understanding what the future needs might become. We really focus in design around functional living, making sure that doorways are wider, making sure that countertops are lower, making sure that the bathrooms are barrier-free, allowing you to utilize maybe walkers or wheelchairs down into the future, making sure that entry into the area is barrier-free to allow you to get in and out without having to step up or down. These are some major concerns when it comes to aging in place. Also utilizing materials that are easy to maintain, easy to care for, easy to clean, as opposed to going with materials that might deteriorate over time. May look different up front, but they ultimately don't stand the test of time. We really focus on in design about that to make sure that you're planning for the future. One of the major concerns right now for people is, where am I going to live as I get older? Not necessarily as I get older as an older adult, but as I come into becoming an adult, where new families are looking for spaces to live in. And it's a challenge getting into the real estate market. One of the most interesting ways accessory dwelling units are being utilized right now is building a space on a family property that is separate but combined. You're building a home for yourself in the backyard of your parents' place or another loved one's space to give yourself a spot to start from, to jump into the real estate market. And once you've made that move, and once you've been able to live in that space for a while, you can utilize that space into the future as a rental income to help fund your future endeavors. Affordability really is a topic of discussion. It's one of the questions we get asked the most. When buying a new home right now as a single family detached home in the Waterford area, in the Brantford area, you might be starting at $500,000, $600,000, $700,000 for a single family home. When building a secondary dwelling unit or an additional dwelling unit, you might be half that price to get a space where you can start your family in. It might be a $250,000, $300,000 purchase price or build price. At the end of the day, you have a property value expansion for the loved one, and you have a space for half the price that you would have paid for when buying a new home. One of the things we pride ourselves on is being involved every step of the way. We love working with people and helping find ways to creatively expand their lives, to make life more affordable, make life more enjoyable. We really get passionate about finding unique ways for people to enjoy their spaces and build lives that are affordable, comfortable, and can last them a lifetime.